bitch!
When Mafia released back in 2002, it marked a revolution for video games in terms of storytelling and attention to detail. It was a true trailblazer for story-oriented games. It was linear, heavily narrative-driven, and offered more of a cinematic experience, something which was very rare at that time. As good as it was for the time, it did feel outdated and needed a remake. Mafia: The Definitive Edition is a fantastic remake of the original. Everything has been reworked and built from the ground up. Hangar 13 did not hold anything back. It succeeds in capturing the original's essence and offers a massively upgraded experience, making significant expansions in the story as well. It takes everything that made the original so special and doubles down on it. It features an outright brilliant story that may be one of the best Mafia stories told in a video game, if not the best. Deep dialogue, fantastic characters, and immaculate voice acting make it a must-play game for players looking for a strong single-player experience. Mafia is set in the city of Lost Heaven, which is heavily inspired by Chicago. It features one of the most beautifully crafted and most lived-in cities in video games, nailing the feeling of 1930s. The game is set against the backdrop of the Great Depression and the Prohibition. These are two fundamental concepts which shape the world of Lost Heaven. The economy is down and people are struggling to make ends meet. The struggles of people can be seen through the game, read in the newspaper, and can be heard on the radio. Poor economy and unemployment are fundamental factors for the rise of crime families in Lost Heaven. As people struggle to make ends meet, they turn to the world of crime out of desperation. This was a result of the Great Depression. The Prohibition was the ban of manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages. The Prohibition actually backfired and led to the rise of many of the mafias. Smuggling booze during this period was the primary bread and butter for the mafias. This can be seen in the game.
Now we're sure.
In Mafia, you play as Thomas Angelo, Tommy. Tommy, who immigrated to the US in 1904. His father worked at the Lost Heaven harbor. Tommy worked on a road crew, helping in the construction of highways, and was on the road a lot of the time. He eventually grew tired of the nomadic lifestyle and saved money to buy a cab. When the game puts you in the shoes of Tommy in 1930, he works as a cab driver in the streets of Lost Heaven. The voice actor who plays Tommy has done a great job. Tommy as a character is multi-layered and complex. He also has a conscience. His actions take a toll on his conscience at times, and he appears conflicted.
Tom, don't do nothing you don't want to be remembered for, you hear me?
Probably too late for that.
Great display of emotion in his voice and some fantastic facial expressions as well. All these elements make Tommy a really good protagonist. The story of Mafia sees Tommy go from a cab driver to a mobster. The time period of the game's events is from 1930 to 38. 1930, when the game initially puts you in the shoes of Tommy, there are two main families in Lost Heaven: the Salieri family and the Morello family. Morello family being more dominant at that time. At the start of the game in 1938, Tommy arranges a meeting with a police officer, offering him to tell his story in exchange for the protection of his wife and daughter. The game's events, except for the epilogue, are recalled by Tommy in his meeting with Detective Norman. The game starts off very strong. In the very first meeting, you see the paranoia and tension on Tommy's face and in the scene. That is conveyed really well. Great storytelling right from the very start. And you can clearly see that Detective Norman is skeptical of what Tommy has to offer. Tommy getting into the life of crime was maybe his destiny. Because one night, Tommy was taking a break from driving. Two men, after some noise of cars and gunshots, came to him and told him to drive, with a gun pointed to his head, of course. They were Sam and Polly. They were from the Salieri family and were being chased by Morello's men. During the drive to escape from Morello's men, Tommy's car got damaged a bit, but he was generously awarded for his drive by Salieri's men. Though very tempting, but Tommy was not ready to give in to the life of crime yet. He went back to working as a cabbie. Sometime later, one day after finishing some rides, Tommy was again taking a break. Morello's men showed up, they destroyed Tommy's cab and started beating him up. Tommy had to run for his life, and wound up at Don Salieri's bar, where Sam and Polly saved him. Don Salieri offered a loan to help Tommy get back to his feet, but Tommy, he wanted revenge. Tommy, in what appears to be his destiny, joins up with the Salieri family in a fit of rage. The Salieri family, which was more prominent in the 1920s, is not doing so good when Tommy joins them. Tommy's story features the resurgence of the Salieri family after tough years and then the ultimate downfall. Everything has been built from the ground up. The original very good for the time, but the dialogue and the delivery of the dialogue feels robotic when we go back to it. And facial expressions, which were also great for the time, feel lackluster. Everything has been redone in the remake faithfully. It succeeds in capturing the essence of the original and enhances every conceivable aspect. Many of the things in the original were limited by the technology, of course, but still it's a huge upgrade and a much needed one.
Nice work, scusami.
The story is not only enhanced but also expanded. It feels way better and much more personal. A lot of the characters are expanded on as well. For instance, the whole relationship between Tommy and Sarah feels much more personal and close in this remake as compared to the original.
You're late. Dinner's cold.
Work.
Now, as far as the story is concerned, it features some incredible characters who are written really well. The dialogue itself is done really well.
What the hell? Morello! Bastard could have at least let me finish my wine.
The voice acting and cutscenes are where the game, to me, shines the hardest. They are done immaculately.
Hey, you wanna go dancing this weekend? Maybe drop the kid off at your pop's place. Yeah, I'm still here. Oh, Christ.
Hey! Stop!
It is very hard to find faults in storytelling. The voice actors have done a damn near perfect job.
Guess not. I gotta go to work.
Tom, don't do nothing you don't want to be remembered for, you hear me?
Probably too late for that.
The delivery of the dialogue feels very real. Polly, who is my favorite side character in the game, his character is much more enhanced in this remake. On the surface, he's funny and has a volatile temper, but deep down, he's really lonely and depressed.
You got a family to look after. I get that. But think about what this could mean for them.
Watch it, buddy. You're treading into enemy territory without a map.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like for you going home to your wife and kid, but that's why I'm doing this. Who's gonna marry me? Nearly 40 years old and nothing to show for it but my rap sheet. But we do this, I get enough scratch to finally get out? Who knows?
You're not built for the domestic life, Polly. What if 6 months in, you'll put a bullet in your brain out of boredom?
Christ. I'm ready to punch my ticket right now. We sit around for 6 months, just playing cards and busting balls, and I start to get lazy. Then everything blows up, and I gotta knock the rust off or I'm dead. One day I'm fighting to stay awake while the Don's telling us a story about the old days. One I've already heard 100 times, and the next day I'm getting shot at, trying to keep from shitting my pants. It's fucking wearing me out, Tommy.
A really well-written, multi-layered character. Emotions are conveyed really well by both the facial expressions and the delivery of the dialogue. Great storytelling across the board. Tommy's story is emotional and personal. There are moments where his actions take a toll on his conscience.
What the hell? We got a message from Mr. Salieri. No!
Moments where he's conflicted. It also features some pretty badass action scenes. And of course, it features betrayal. Everything a good Mafia story really needs.
We have a mole, Tom.
If you have a knack for captivating stories, then you must play this one. Well, now moving on to the gameplay. The gameplay, overall, it's fine. It is not something that stands out. Combat and stealth mechanics are similar to Mafia 3. gunplay is solid. The melee combat is also similar to Mafia 3. The takedowns seem a little less brutal though. The weapons are not too diverse in the game. We have pistols, revolvers, some melee weapons, shotgun, a bolt-action rifle, and of course the Mafia crime special, the Tommy gun, and the Messenger of Death, Lupara. You do have to work a bit to control your recoil, so that's nice to see. The enemies are not that smart, but they're not complete dimwits. You are required to use stealth in some missions, and the stealth is done fine for the most part. Melee combat is really simplified like Mafia 3. You know, when I come to think of it, Mafia 2 was really ahead of its time with its melee combat, the hand-to-hand combat. That was great in Mafia 2. This remake and Mafia 3, in my opinion, are worse in hand-to-hand melee combat than Mafia 2. Grenades and Molotovs make cameos as throwables. Well, driving was an important part in the original. It is still a big part, and it is much easier to drive in this game. You can choose between regular and simulation settings. Simulation settings do offer a bit of a challenge, but it is really fun actually. Driving itself is done really well. The cars feel true to the time period and are actually heavy. The race is also easily doable now. I really like driving in this remake. Other than cars, motorcycles also make an appearance. It is pretty fun to drive a motorcycle. And the game is really not that challenging unless you are playing it at the classic difficulty. If you want a bit of a challenge, the classic difficulty can give you that. The mission design is quite diverse and remade faithfully. It makes full use of the game's mechanics. It does feature an open world, but Mafia is heavily narrative focused and is very linear. It does offer the free ride mode, but there isn't much to do in it except drive around and collect collectibles. I do feel on a level that more could have been done with such a brilliantly crafted world, but I like the linear Mafia approach. In my opinion, it makes Mafia stand out. But then again, the open world feels underutilized. If you do want to explore the world, then like I mentioned, free ride mode is available, but it feels kinda empty. It has already been over 4 years since this remake came out. It still looks drop dead gorgeous. The world is beautiful and the atmosphere is amazing. Character models are incredibly detailed and look great. The cars are incredibly detailed and look great. I absolutely love the lighting in this game. They really nailed the lighting in this one. It doesn't matter if the sun is out, or if it's nighttime, or if it's raining. The lighting is spectacular all the time. It features some great reflections as well. The textures themselves are also incredibly detailed. Rain and night, in my opinion, bring out the best in the game graphically. The game is also not that demanding, unless you're running it on a total potato. Most of the low-end hardware will be able to run this game without any problems. Mafia Definitive Edition is linear and heavily narrative driven. It takes about 10 to 15 hours to complete it. If you're a completionist, then it may take you longer. All in all, it has a fantastic story, fine enough gameplay, and a beautiful world. This remake does justice and pays respect to the original in the best way possible. As a remake, it is absolutely remarkable. It is one of the best remakes out there on the market. It was a game that needed a remake, and boy oh boy did they deliver with this remake. If Mafia the Old Country, which is supposed to come out next year, anything like this, then we are in for a treat. I 100% recommend this to anyone looking for a solid narrative-driven game. It is one of the best out there. With this, I'd like to conclude the video. Thank you very much for your time.